It's finally here. You've survived several nights at Freddy's. You've read through short horror story after short horror story. You've read the original novel trilogy, and you probably have a very unhinged obsession with the Five Nights at Freddy's merch as a whole. But after all that, all the gaming, all the reading, all the collecting of merchandise, I feel like it's all been led to this one moment. The Five Nights at Freddy's movie, which was announced in 2015, and now it's finally out for the world's Five Nights at Freddy's fans to enjoy. It only took 2 years shy of a decade to get released, so without further ado, let's dive into this film, shall we? The film stars Josh Hutcherson, Matthew Lillard, Elizabeth Lail, the samurai ankle breaker himself, Corey Kenshin, Piper Rubio, Kat Connor Sterling, Mary Stuart Masterson, Grant Feely, Kevin Foster, Ryan Renick, Ethan Jameson, and Wyatt Parker. And I'm sure Five Nights at Freddy's fans will be happy to not only see the Corey Kenshin cameo, but know that Matt Pat and Dawko also have cameos. Matt Pat famous for his outlandish Five Nights at Freddy's theories, and Dawko being a just Five Nights at Freddy's YouTuber in general. That's literally all he posts about. And Dawko has his picture on the Employee of the Month board, and Matt Pat appears as a employee at a local diner known as Sparky's, which just references one of Five Nights at Freddy's biggest hoax involving an animatronic dog known as Sparky. It was heavily believed that this was one of the rare screens in Five Nights at Freddy's 1, but unfortunately it was revealed that this was very much staged and that there was no evidence of this ever appearing in the game. It was hoaxed, it was fake, but it's just such a part of Five Nights at Freddy's lore, and if you've been here as long as I have, you've been here since the beginning, it's a really nice reference. And for those people who think that Matt Pat tricked the audience to basically cover up his role in the movie, he didn't trick you, really. I mean, he never went to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. He didn't go to the main Five Nights at Freddy's set. He was at a potentially completely different location filming the cameo at Sparky's. Oh, and you thought it was done with the cameos? Oh no, we're just scratching the surface with the inclusion of popular Five Nights at Freddy's YouTubers here in the community. We also got references to the books. Let that sink in. References to the books. Jason Blum and the people at Blumhouse, they did their research. There's an animatronic Springlock suit in the movie, in parts and service, that basically is Ella. If you don't know who Ella is, Ella was a small little animatronic doll that Charlie had in the original novel trilogy. And further branching into that original novel trilogy, there's also a scene in which Foxy chases Abby through the arcade, which feels like it's ripped directly out of the original novel trilogy. If you don't know what I'm talking about, in the original novel trilogy, the story opens up with a flashback or nightmare situation in which Charlie is getting chased by Foxy through the arcade. He's throwing arcade cabinets out of the way, and he's searching for Charlie. And this scene mirrors that scene in the books perfectly, with Abby hiding behind arcade cabinets while Foxy looks around for her. A lot of the characters in this movie, outside of the main four, Mike, William, Abby, and Vanessa, are just generic characters. They don't really do a whole lot in the film, and they don't contribute a lot to the plot. They're basically what is essentially meat for the grinder. So let's talk about that actually, because there are some really interesting and creative kills in this movie. I want to talk about that Cupcake. Mr. Cupcake goes crazy in this movie. There's a scene where we saw in the trailer where he bites on the guy's face. We actually see the aftermath of that. We see this guy's dead body laying in the corner of Parks and Service later on in the film. His face is all chewed up. We see, like, it looks like bits of hamburger, like, before it's made into a patty. It's gross. It's nasty looking. We see a woman get bit in half by Freddy, which obviously caused my theater to just start screaming, and they're like, "Was that the bite of 87?" Yes, it was. It was the bite of 87. And then there's obviously that Freddy head and torso, which has been made into some sort of torture or death trap, very reminiscent of something you would see in the Saw franchise. Very creepy, very scary. We see a guy at the beginning of the movie actually die to this thing. We don't see what it does to the people because PG, but it's implied that because of the rotating saw blades and it basically rips and tears through the person's face and their chest. And not all the kills are over the top. There's one kill, which is actually at the beginning of the movie, where we see Foxy chasing the previous security guard before Mike, right? So this is the opening scene of the movie, giving you the feel of what to expect in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. And we see this guy, he's just scared shitless. He's running, he's trying to find a way. Obviously, we know he doesn't, because Mike gets hired. But he runs down a hall, he's trying to unlock the main entrance to the pizzeria. Unfortunately, he's unable to do that, but we see Foxy slowly walk down the hall to him, stomping around, and he's singing his before breaking into a sprint, chasing this guy, and just presumably killing him. We hear the jump scare sound too, which just a nice another nod to the games and the franchise as a whole. When it comes to the music of this film, they did really good. There's a lot of 80s and 90s tracks. I love that type of music, so just instant bangers for me specifically. But the original soundtrack, so their instrumental music, the stuff that's made to create atmosphere for the movie, really good. Like some really foreboding tones to some of their music. And then there's some really happy stuff, really sad stuff. It feels really polished and really good. So obviously tracks that make you connect with the characters emotionally, and I feel like this soundtrack really does that. It makes you connect with Mike and Vanessa and Abby. It makes you feel scared when William Afton, aka Springtrap, is on screen. I just want to say, without giving too much away from the actual plot of the movie and not just references and the music and how good the acting is and the creativeness of the kills, the movie basically it tells the story of the first FNAF game, with a few extra bells and whistles added to it. There's nothing really new to talk about if you're a Five Nights at Freddy's fan. It's pretty much the same stuff we've had for a long time now. It tells the story of the first game with a modern twist on it. And I really like that. I like that they changed the phone guy. We don't really have a phone guy in this movie. We do have like a call um, that Mike takes where William Afton briefly runs through his tasks, and then we have a training video that kind of just tells him everything else he needs to know. But it's not a continuous thing like in the games where he basically gives you a message every single night to let you know what you're supposed to do as the week progresses. It's just he tells him what he needs to do on his shift, gives him the videotape, and that's it. Now, I'm sure one of the things you guys have been waiting for me to talk about is Matthew Lillard's iteration of Spring Bonnie, aka William Afton. And I wasn't disappointed. I actually really liked what Matthew Lillard did with it. When he's on screen as Spring Bonnie, because we don't find that out until, spoiler alert, the end of the film, he's really scary, he's really creepy, he feels like an unhinged, horrible person, he's very angry, and you just he feels very uncomfortable when he's on screen. Like he feels you tell this guy the wrong thing and he'll put you through the wall. Not to mention, it seems like the spring Bonnie suit gives him like superhuman strength. He was picking people up and throwing them against the wall like he was an Incredible Hulk or something. Also, I wish that there was more done with the Springlock failure sequence. We obviously get William Afton turning into Springtrap because he uses the Spring Bonnie suit to carry out his murders, his killings, and then at the end, obviously, he turns into Springtrap by having the Springlock failure. And I feel like it's too tame. I mean, this guy is inside a suit that's literally made up of spring locks to keep it together. The spring locks trigger, and it doesn't seem real. I wish there was more gore and more like blood, bones cracking, flesh being, ripped into, and it's not. It's very tame, and it's PG, so like, what am I expecting? But I wish they would have, done more with such an iconic scene, with something that's so solid in the FNAF lore. Like, if you like Five Nights at Freddy's, you know what happens. You know that this guy has a springlock failure. He gets trapped in the springlock suit. However, he can never die. He always comes back. Everyone knows that. And the fact that his death sequence, his death from William Afton into Springtrap, the springlock failure itself feels so like fake to me. And it's such a crucial part of the story. It's a crucial moment in Five Nights at Freddy's history. For them to not go all out with something as crucial as the Springlock failure, obviously sealing William's fate and turning him from a man into a literal monster. Well, I mean, a horrible evil man into a horrible evil monster that barely resembles a human anymore, to be more specific. I also want to mention just the idea of going to the movie itself is an experience. I went to this movie, and I feel like every single Five Nights at Freddy's fan in town showed up. They all had their plushies with them, their Five Nights at Freddy's, shirts and clothing. Really cool. Like, I was with my people. Like, I was with my people, guys. My people. There were so many awesome Five Nights at Freddy's fans that came out to enjoy this movie. It felt like an experience as well as a movie. Like, it was so awesome to be with a bunch of people who enjoyed the same thing I enjoyed, to basically react to the movie the same way I was reacting to the movie. It was so much fun. And I know a lot of people might be out there and like, I hate going into a theater that's packed. Let me tell you this. When it's something that you care about and everybody else in the theater cares about, it's a different thing. It feels like we're all experiencing our favorite thing together. It's so cool. I loved it. And the fact that we haven't had a movie in so long since the coronavirus pandemic, where a theater has been filled to the brim with people, it was a breath of fresh air to have a community of awesome people come together to watch a movie together, and to have that theater be practically full. It's something I can only really describe as magical. Something that's so beautiful. And I know not everybody can afford to go to movies right now with inflation and everything. And some people are still, recovering from the pandemic, and maybe they'll never recover. But it's moments like this that I live for, where a community, like the FNAF community, we come together and enjoy something as simple as a movie-going experience. But with that being said, let me know what you guys thought about the movie in the comments below. What was your favorite part? What was your favorite kill? Let me know all this in the comments below. And with that, hope you enjoyed. Do take care. And I'll see you in the next video.